because she's not here. Hello. Hi. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I always forget you have your red background. I love it.
I'm in the bedroom today.
Yeah, I love that red screen. It always draws me in. I'm like, ooh.
I will just unblur, if I can remember how to unblur the background, then you can see my bed.
Oh, it's
very
it's got a nice,
quite regal, isn't it?
It's
lovely.
Yeah.
I love that word, regal. I've just started recording because we've not got Helen with us, and I'm gonna basically try and have a bit of a call with her just to kind of make sure she's on track. But I was really aware I wanted us to just start. Just Debs, for your context, I will bring everyone up to the same point. But this program's been running 3 months-ish with Lizzie whilst I was away. And we've basically come to a bit of a crossroads. This is what this is about, this program, where actually it's now about you and your businesses. And Debs has come in from the right angle. You know, she's like I don't know, I'm trying to find a sport analogy, but it's not coming to me. Snuck in. Because, Carol, for context,
Yeah.
Deb basically had this baby that she's birthing at the moment. That's a kind of a new creative concept where she's been doing all of our social media for the Wellbeing Girl, and it's led her on to have a bit of a new business interest area, which has a name, Debs, now, does it?
Yeah, it's called Design Magic by Debs.
Design
Nice.
Magic. Oh, that's a good name,
isn't it? So it felt like a bit weird not to invite Debs because we're still figuring out like what support she needs, but this is kind of where we're at now. It just makes sense to kind of weave her in. And me and Lizzie were just saying, with this program moving forward, we feel like it's going to be quite flowy with like people coming in and out, because it kind of feels like people need different things at different times. It's not like the same structure. I think it's going to be quite open, and yeah, so it's really nice to explore just being open to kind of what is happening, and rather than being rigid. That's kind of what.
But still focusing on becoming a wellbeing girl, is that?
So the Wellbeing Girl bit was always like an add-on. So that's the bit that you can always take at the end of the program. So Helen obviously is the one that was more interested in that side. So we get to kind of 3 months down the line, and we'll go into kind of what it means at that point to take on a license, become a Wellbeing Girl. But this next 3 months is just about like cementing your brand vibe, or like what you're here to offer. So actually at this point, it's not about at us at the Wellbeing Girl, which was always the way. We were taking you through a journey, and then you could kind of add on our bit and take our mission if it felt resonant. But actually we're kind of not there yet, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess I'd love just to kick off by Lizzie just providing a bit of a summary as to, in your eyes, Lizzie, like where did we get to in terms of kind of your last call? And is there anything I should know just about kind of where we're at in terms of, and I guess, Carol, I will come to you in terms of kind of how you're feeling around your own ideas and how they're starting to form. So Lizzie, I'll go to you first, if that's okay.
Sure. I'm just going to change my screen and put it onto gallery so I can see all of your lovely faces properly. So I feel like as far as I got to with Helen and Carol was all about exploring yourselves and like knowing who you are. So it kind of like, you know how in the first couple of modules we kind of went back to some of the stuff that we did in Journey Within. So it's kind of getting clear on your values, on your mission, on your purpose. And then we kind of delved a little bit deeper into that, didn't we? Where we started then looking at exploring sort of your strengths and your experiences, and then really starting to be able to sort of get clarity on that, and then to start being able to communicate that, because, you know, obviously a big part of being an entrepreneur or a business owner is being sort of able to communicate with confidence what you're doing, and then being able to communicate that message across to people. So I think, do you feel, Carol, that is sort of where we got to?
Yeah, the last bit I remember is the strengths and skills. Yeah.
And so, Carol, just to put you on the spot, just because Debs doesn't have an introduction or an insight into you and what you're kind of creating here, like, how would you put it into words? Like, where is it up to? Because actually I would love to hear too, because obviously you've gone through a bit of a journey with that and yourself. So yeah, do you want to share a bit more? Because then it can bring Debs into.
Yeah, sure. Well, I can now call myself a nutrition coach because I've completed my nutrition and culinary practice course and I passed the exam. So I'm really happy about that. And that gave me a massive feeling of empowerment when I knew that I'd passed that. And so now I'm thinking I want to combine nutrition coach, well-being coach.
Oh.
And then I've had a chat with Lizzie about this, and I've also had a chat with Tor and sort of PA supporting role and how to combine all of that into one, well, not necessarily one whole thing, but depending on what people want, is I can offer those three things and I can combine them or not.
I love that. And it feels like it's open enough to kind of like evolve with you, if that makes sense. Because it's got lots of bits to it. But what we're trying to create here, right, is a part of us that we're sharing with the world, a whole new world. So actually, like, it makes sense that it has different layers and different facets to us, because look at me with the Wellbeing Girl 2 years ago. There's now these other things that have sprouted. So you're creating like some room for it to grow with you. That's what I'm hearing there, which is really nice, because it will evolve. Like, what you create today won't be what you've created tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then my current job, I'm down to 4 days, and they're happy for me just to say when I want to go to 3 days. And there's more and more things going on there that I'm not in tune with, and it's making me think now's the time to go. And it's also showing me they have a massive gap in mental health support, which is what brought me to you in the first place, because they weren't helping me, so I've got to help myself. So there's still a gap they've got, and it's not the first time it's come up that there's no mental health support.
Interesting. So there's almost, it's trusting. I've been saying the same to Debs, because I think she, is in the last few weeks been really thinking more about kind of this concept, because she's just like, the first time she did some branding for us, she literally was up all night, and I was like, Debs, make sure you sleep and eat. But it just showed, right? Like, it just showed she was in her flow, and she was like, found her magic. And I think sometimes, like,
that's nice.
It's trusting that it makes you feel alive, because there's something there. But also, like I've been saying to her, like, it'll get harder before it gets easier, because actually there's a bit of like, oh, well, I know I want to do that now, and what do I need to do to actually get
to get there?
That's where you're at. But the fact that you've got that agreement to like go, because I did that 4, 3, 2, 1, like I went through that process. So it's just trusting the fact that like you're where you need to be. But what we're trying to focus now on a bit more, and it's very much in 2 parts, this program, is kind of like your offering in the world, rather than kind of like setting you up to be that change. We've already done that work. Like, we've already done the work around stepping into our power. We're now starting to dive into, and this is really cool for Lizzie too, into who is your ideal client? Like, who needs to receive this? Like, who is this for? And actually often it's sometimes us, like 3 years ago, or it's an old version of us. So that's the kind of invitation I want to kick us off with today, in terms of like thinking a little bit and finding some space to think a little bit about having like writing down a few points around, if you were going to tell me who your ideal client is that in the future is going to be buying one of your programs or offers, tell me a little bit about them. And Debs, yours might be B2B, so yours might be a business, but actually it's really feeling into like their vision, mission, like what they're all about, because we haven't done this bit yet. We haven't thought about how we're bridging the gap of kind of service to then how it meets someone else out in the world. Carol, what were you going to say?
Is B2B, does that mean business to business?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You could either be doing this from like a personal transformation. So Lizzie, I'd be guiding you to think about an individual that's in one of your yoga classes, for example, like but you could be thinking about a business, but it's up to you how you want to go with this. It's sometimes easier to work back from an individual, just because you know a little bit more about what their personal challenge might be. But what we're thinking about is, what problem am I trying to solve?
Well, I can see a couple of problems, like with the cooking side of it. I'm quite happy to go into people's houses and cook with them, or I'm happy to cook myself at home and, batch cook and put things in foil dishes and deliver them within a certain radius. I'm also thinking with the well-being, the client, they are generally women who look for this kind of support, but women, like you say, like me, those who think they can do it all but need to realize you can't do it all at the same time.
So you're solving your own problem there, aren't you? Because actually there's a point in time where you needed your own solution.
Yes. And I would guess that I'm not the only one like that. Yeah.
So just note down a few things that you've come up with there, because this will start to really inform like some of the language we start to use. And we're going to think a little bit about today, mainly like we call it our brand vibe, but like what's the feeling of what we're creating when we start to put it out in the world, and what language sits around it, because actually this is how we get the message out about our offer in a unique way. Because a lot of this works about, why are they coming to Debs? Like, why would they come to Debs over someone else? Why, Lizzie, are they going to come to you over me? Because we are the opposite. Because they want to be held in a calm, rooted way rather than pushed with like all the energy and like, because we are the yin and yang. So it's about softness for you, Lizzie, the language you use, right? And being really grounded and rooted and held in a safe container. That's what I'd be saying, because that's who you are as a coach. Does that make sense? We're starting to pull from like our unique strengths into kind of our messaging around what we're offering to the world, because it's us we are selling. Does that make sense? It's very different based on who we have in front of us.
No, it's good what you said about me, Natalie, because there's been a couple of people that I've reached out to and I was like, oh, what do you like about my content? Oh, you're very calm.
Yeah.
So I think I need to kind of work on that a little bit more.
So question for you is what solution or what problem are you solving for them? Like if they're being drawn into a calmness around you, what might be going on in their life? Like what might be something in your messaging that you use to pull in on something that's naturally quite strong for you?
Well, actually and again, that takes me back to another conversation I had with someone, and I think maybe I should use that as kind of like one of the key things that we discussed, but more balance in their lives.
Exactly.
Why don't I mean, like, just as a really random side note, sorry, I will keep switching my camera off because you don't want to see me eating this, and I feel really bad being on a call with a nutrition coach and I'm eating an ice cream anyway.
I have to eat ice cream.
But Lizzie, why don't, like, for some of us that were on your like me, although we've like written testimonials about the program in general, why don't we write something about working with you in particular? I mean, I can absolutely hand on heart say that, we always, didn't we, every time you were like, right, we're going to start off with a meditation, we were all like, yes, because it was just like, because you just can't, after a busy day or a hectic week or whatever it was, you just really helped to bring it down.
Crazy day. You just need it's like we just need you like next to us, just need like a recipe or like a bottle, and it's like Lizzie, and then we dip into it because we need some of that calmness, like but we need to also use that as a tool to engage them in the journey. So I think that's a really good action, Lizzie. If you can make a note to invite me, Tor, Carol, 4 of us, Helen, to all write your personal testimonial for your version of becoming. It's your version, right? Because it's not the same as my version, and you're different. And maybe that's where the mismatch in the messaging is coming from. The language isn't yours enough.
I think you're right. That makes a lot of sense, I think. Because you do have a really, like you say, you are yin and yang, and for a lot of people actually both works, but you are unique at the end of the day, and the way that we all worked with you in the cohort that you looked after, there will be specific things that you did or made people feel, it's definitely worth getting some testimonials from that perspective.
And I really like that question of what problem are we solving. Come back to that. So if someone from that place of feeling unbalanced or stressed or anxious was going to read something, what was the message that they'd need to hear in that moment? So what do they need to hear from me? You know, because actually language is so key here, because energy, you know, language is so key to getting energy across. So really spending some time asking people like Debs, Carol, me, like, what, you know, in those moments where you're heightened, like what problem are you, like, what are you feeling? Like, is it chaos? Like, maybe you're feeling chaotic. So then the word chaos becomes the sales tool of how you then use that in your messaging. But it's those key bits of language that are really going to pull in your client, because your client isn't the same as mine. And I think this is where like the Wellbeing Girl bit comes in, because we can talk a little bit about how everyone will be unique in their offerings. But yes, we have the same container of becoming, but they're going to have a completely different experience. A much calmer one, probably. Mine, you know, I'm all about action. I'm all about drive. I'm about, you know, being the change in the world. And like really, this is why this is a lot more comfortable for me, because it's about action, right? With the creating.
That's why it works for me, because I need both of you, both those energies.
Yeah. And some people, I've actually had it a few times the last few weeks, is that I'm a bit much and people are like, oh, and actually we need to figure out, Lizzie, in those moments as well, how we then cross refer, because you might not be enough for someone that needs to be kicked in and then might scare someone away.
You give them the kick and then pass them to Lizzie.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess this point is about use that unique strength that we've worked with in Lizzie the last few months. Like, why you? What walks in the room when you do? What energy walks in the room when you do? You know, that word, like, Carol, what is it for you? Like, how are you going to show up and really offer support to that person in a unique way that is Carol's way? You know, what words come through when I ask you that question?
I don't know, because I haven't actually done it. I don't really know what it feels like. So maybe I need to practice with people I know.
This is where we will be going into a little bit of this. So the next question, we're gonna start to explore this concept of a brand vibe, which is basically the feeling of the offer that you're creating. So Debs has already done this. So she started having a little go at like a company logo, for example. So Debs, do you want to just share a little bit about how you've got to that point on your own? Because this was already in my content for today, which is why I messaged you being like, there's too many synchronicities here. I have to just like leave you in, because there's just, you're doing this. And I'm like, I feel like I need to just like sometimes trust that people just need things at certain points and we need to pull everyone together. But yeah, do you want to share it firstly? And how did you get to that point? Because I think this is where we're moving, not Lizzie so much, because obviously you've got a brand to work with, but that messaging around like, how do we get Lizzie's feeling and the kind of like, yeah, the real kind of like magic of what Lizzie brings into some of the words we use.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what's kind of helped is that having a career in internal communications, you know, I'm always thinking about the audience, you know, so what do I want my audience to and the typical kind of things that you learn from internal comms is, what do you want your audience to know or think, feel and do? So that was kind of like, but also this, although obviously it's about your audience, it's also about you. So like, I mean, when we first started having conversations about, you know, the fact that I love being creative and where, you know, I'm wanting to support the Wellbeing Girl and what I could do to help, and actually this was filling a void for me in terms of, you know, I was working in a job, well, I am working in a job that I don't enjoy. It's not as creative as I'd like it to be. So this is filling that void for me in terms of, you know, it's lighting the fire, it's lighting a fire in me, it's lighting me up. So finding like, so I mean, I'll be honest with you, like just, you know, working on a name and a logo and all that kind of stuff, it does not happen overnight. Like it, and actually what I will say is I have found it really hard. It's so much easier working with someone else's brand and someone else's like messaging and stuff, because actually this your brand is about you and you've got to sell yourself, and that is like, that's really hard. Like it's you know, so
back yourself and you've got to be like
it's really like, I was like, why am I finding this so difficult? You know, to come up with a name, and you know,
it's a lot about business, like having your own business as being like your own like personal development healing crisis, because you literally have to back yourself like nothing else.
Yeah.
And Lizzie, this is everything we spoke about around that push pull and that resistance, right? Because you're healing all that stuff around I'm not enough through having these offers in the world. So it's funny that the journey within and the becoming and this program, that it's all intertwined, because actually it's about us fully accepting ourselves and fully hearing,
massively,
fully seeing ourselves, right? Without that, there is no offer.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I would, and you know, and quite often I'd kind of do something and I'd go back to, I mean, I explored loads of different names before I settled on what I settled on. You know, and it does involve you needing to step away from it at times. And, you know, so you might like be working really hard on something and it's just not clicking, and you think, right, I need to now step away and, you know, come back to it tomorrow. And then, I mean, and, you know, you go through, I mean, I've gone through in the last couple of weeks, just so many different things, like, so coming up with the name. And then the next thing is thinking about your colors and thinking about your brand fonts and thinking about what your how to, you know, what you want your purpose to say, what you want, what are your values. I mean, it's a lot to try and
I hadn't even thought about a font.
it's, well, this is what I mean, like, it's just,
again, you have to think like Deb coming from
I know.
yeah, I was going to say, like, quite a lot of people do like outsource that kind of stuff, and that person will, you know, to like a brand person, and they would help you uncover all of these things. But because I like the creative and I like, you know, I wanted to try and do as much of it myself as possible. So yeah, I mean, and also it's just I think the other thing is reaching out to people and saying, you know, what you know, does this work for you, you know, in terms of whatever it is, whether it's colors or, you know, and they don't have to be like potential clients, it could just be friends and family and stuff. But if they were looking for what you're offering, does what you're, you know, does what the language you're using, etc., does it work for them? If not, you know, you want that honest feedback.
Yeah, and you might get it and you might not get it right the first time. I think it might grow with you, like we say. So I think where we're getting to, Carol, is we want you to have a go at it. Like,
you just have to try it. And Natalie's completely right. What I would say is, I was trying so hard to get like nail it and get like the perfect name and the perfect design and the perfect this, that, and the other. And I'm just starting. So it, you know, and like Natalie said, you're gonna grow with it. So like lots of people and brands and stuff, when they start their business, it adapts and it evolves over time. So it doesn't, you know, you want it to be right, but don't seek perfection, because you'll evolve. And it's like with everything that we've gone through on our journey within it, it's a journey. So, you know, you don't,
you know, and I think
start somewhere, and the best thing to do is to just start. Really.
Well, I've got a name and I've got a logo, but I need advice on them.
Maybe you could share them. We'll add you to the group, Debs. I know we've not confirmed like how you're going to be involved, but I feel like at the moment, like, let's just allow this to flow, and we'll share these in the group and kind of ask each other for some feedback on them, because I think as we move through, it's about giving you guys the content. And this is all stuff that I was given when I first wrote Becoming. So I went through a personal development program with a coach for 12 months to write The Journey Within. And all her stuff is in here around like lead magnet stuff, like sales, you know, processes. It's all here. But actually the whole point is the fact that we're integrating it with you doing it at the same time. Because if I just give you this manuscript, it doesn't mean anything. Because it's about, okay, I know what I need to do it. See how that feels. Come back. Let's have a chat about it. Exactly. It's all the fear that we're pushing through and all the layers as well. Yeah. And even go one step further and create some kind of profile. So Lizzie, do you remember when you first created the Wellbeing Girl Lizzie, for example? Like, that feels like a while ago now, but it's really honoring like that moment and what that means, because you're showing up. And Lizzie, this is so present for you as well, because you're showing up for the first time in the world as a coach, and that's really big, and that's really different, right, for you with where you're at.
Well, there's still like confidence stuff around that comes up.
Of course. But it'd be weird if there wasn't, right? Because actually, if there wasn't, then you're not in the right place anyway, because how we grow is pushing that comfort zone. So you're in the right place because it's meant to feel uncomfortable. So I think, there's something around, I think you've been doing it and you've been showing up so well and really like honoring your truth with that. But I think there's some refinement around the messaging, like we say, and the next thing we're going to work through is really, really drilling down who is my ideal client, because without this, it's a sea of people.
Yeah.
It could be everyone, right? And I think when we get a really clear line of sight around what's the energy that I'm trying to align to, and you see the problem, or you see that person having that thought around the solution you're trying to solve, the marketing, the connection around that program and the sale becomes super easy. And I think that's where we're kind of all getting a bit stuck at the moment, or me as well, is actually like getting super clear on that funnel and really making sure that kind of funnel is in place. And it gets easier once the brand vision is clear as well. But the two kind of come together and they'll need to be kind of like explored together as a whole as well. Carol, anything else question-wise on your side in terms of, are you happy to go away and have a go at, like, you've already got something, so are you happy to share something with us, like in the WhatsApp?
Yeah, well, I got the name Primrose Makes.
Yes, that was always the name, wasn't it, from the beginning?
There, and I know it's tiny, but I took a photo of a primrose and my sister painted it.
Aww.
So I wanted something unique. I didn't want to use somebody else's photo. I don't know if there's any copyright issues as well. So I wanted my own. And then after speaking to Lizzie, I asked other people, what do you think of the name? Have you got any other suggestions? And they came up with suggestions, but none of them fitted right with me. I've just found my notes. They suggested Primrose Coaching, Primrose Nature, I don't know what that one is, Primrose Wellbeing, Primrose Health, Primrose Me, Primrose Goals, Primrose Me Goals, but none of them feel any better than Primrose Makes.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think as well, there's something around it being general enough for you to use different parts of it.
Yes, that's what I thought.
It makes your market too small, because I think it's quite a wide umbrella. I get a sense of things that you want to offer as well.
And also there's some kind of mystery behind the name, like, oh, what does that mean? Like, tell me more.
Because I do have a story. Yes, because I was born on Primrose Day.
Oh, see, that's lovely. Yeah, that's lovely.
Oh, thank you.
That's lovely. Yeah, and that's the thing is, yeah, like there are some. I'm not sure there's ever really unless like what Natalie said, if you pigeonhole yourself, like I could have gone with like social design creatives or something like that, and then it just kind of that pigeonholes me into social media, which is why I've gone for design magic, because later on down the line that could be print, it could be it could be anything. So
I've changed my name like 3 times now.
I think this is where we see a really big, like, I keep talking about in two worlds at the moment, like it's so present that we're like in between two ways of working in like an old traditional structure that's corporation led, and a new age of like social entrepreneur that basically is like finding their passion, which is leading to their purpose. And it's like that concept, if you don't know your purpose, start with your passion. And that's what we're talking about here. It's something we care about. It's something that's lit a fire inside us, and then we're kind of working that through and creating an offer. The future is literally going to be bottom up. So corporations, like, I don't know, Age of Aquarius, like it literally is like the whole system is changing. So like this will be the way we move forward, and vulnerability is at the heart. So the first thing we need to be thinking about is your why, because without your why, there isn't an offer. And I think, again, you've just all kind of covered that now really briefly, but actually, Debs, like, can you create some wording like on the spot around that feeling of that magic inside that this brings you? Because if you can't tell that story about what your why, that sale isn't going to convert. Do you see what I mean? So we're kind of, and I think Lizzie as well, this is what we've not quite got to yet with your version of becoming. Like, what's your version of becoming? When you first went through the journey within, like, what were your massive light bulb moments that changed who you were? Have we really almost encapsulated that? Because without that, we're not going to sell. We're not going to sell it. Does that make sense? I don't think we've kind of really bottomed that out enough yet. What was your light bulb moment? Like, give us a few light bulb moments that really shifted things for you on the spot. Please say none, and I won't take it personally.
No, I mean,
no.
I remember saying to you, like, because I was like, did I have like any light bulb moments? I think one of the things that I really realized was that I was on the right path.
Yeah.
That I'm actually where I needed to be, exactly where I needed to be. So there was a lot of clarity around that.
It's a really important word then. Again, you know this. Like, I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and she was thinking about her offering and how to get it into the world. And I was like, hang on a minute, this was you 3 years ago. So what did you need to hear 3 years ago? Like, it's literally an old version of us. So we know the language because we've been there. But we're kind of trying to make it intellectual. We're trying to look from outside, and it's language you already have in a heart, like inside us. And I think it's going back to that, like, clarity came out really strongly there. You're exactly where you need to be. That might be something you use in your messaging. If that was what you took out of the program, actually, it kind of cemented everything I already knew. That's amazing. You don't always need to learn new things. You know, do you remember with Emma from Oxford Health? She went through to Purpose and realized, wow, I know why I work in the NHS. I've basically now understood why I am where I am. And that's an amazing feeling. It's not always about going somewhere new. It's about, okay, I know who I am and I know why I'm here. So that's a really different message, Lizzie, isn't it? But I think it's a really powerful one. So it's kind of getting to where we're getting to. So maybe that's where there's a disconnect. Like, my messaging isn't quite your messaging. I'm sensing.
Yeah, no, I can see that definitely, for sure. So I just need to have a think about, as you said, my light bulb moments, like what I got out of the program myself.
Where did you start and where did you end? So, like, I'd say like A to B transformation's big here as well, because like someone is going to be starting somewhere. Where are they going to end after 12 weeks? What comes to your mind? Same with you, Carol. If you're working with someone on a program, where do they start and where do they end? Who are they becoming? Like, what do they learn? Like, what are those stepping stones? Because your stepping stones are probably a bit softer than mine. I'm like, you're going to change your career and you're going to, you know, leave your home and move across the country. You know, that's just my story. So yeah, it's just really feeling into that language, I think. And I think the feminine needs to come across maybe a little bit more in your marketing at the moment, Lizzie, and we can have another session on that. So I put something in the chat box. I want us to all go at this now. It's quite specific and it's about really nailing down the who. So spend a little bit of time on this and we'll kind of just talk it through. It's the first time probably you've started to think a little bit about who, but it's a really big part of all of this because actually the offer is created with this person in mind. It can't be any other way, or it's not for them, if that makes sense. So it's a really important part of the process. So yeah, I'll stop talking for a bit.
Are we doing this now?
If you can, I think it'll be useful.
Okay.
It's quite hard. I'll be up. This is where I'm struggling a little bit.
Exactly. I think that's why you're here, Debs. I kind of knew I had like the message before.
You do. Like, you have a sixth sense with me. You really do.
Scary.
You really do.
I only gave you 15 minutes notice.
I know.
But that's Natalie all over.
I'm like, then I get a message. I'm like, okay, cool. And then if she's going to be there, she's going to be there. If she's not, she's not. It was like, she could receive that any way she wanted. I just knew I had to ask. And, you know, and if there's ones you need to come back to, fine, but try and answer a few and really, really trust your intuition here. So remember the difference with our intuition and our mind, in that our mind's like, oh, it's loud, it's like anxious, and our intuition is really soft and calm. And really think about what comes up and where that's coming from, because actually we're trusting our intuition here because we already know these answers, because actually, like we say, it's an old version of us.
I feel like I can answer some of these, but not all. And some of them I kind of like doubt myself a little bit. Like so for example, like gender, right? So part of me wants to say women and like female entrepreneurs, and then a part of me is like, but what about the guys? Like, you know, it's sort of because I do, you know, so I do have a background in working with builders merchants and, you know, people that literally shovel shit for a living. Like, so I'm kind of like, so I do have that.
The first thing was women. So it's women. It's women for now.
Okay.
Because do you notice how Deb's talked that through and her mind got involved?
Yeah.
Like, what about the men? Like,
yeah,
like, that's the mind thing. That's our mind, yeah. And it's like, no, it's women. It's women.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that might be later the men, but it's like that's the difference with intuition and.
I see. That's helpful. Thank you.
You know, and being super specific here. You know, it might be actually that someone you know, or a role model you know, or someone, Carol, you've met down the local village shop pops into your head. They might be the profile of this person that you're looking to capture. So just notice here, like what pops into your mind, because the questions might stimulate some memories or some other ways of you getting to access this information, or things might pop up during the week where you just meet someone and something they say, you're like, oh, that's really got me thinking. So this is about just kind of opening this way of thinking.
Yeah, nobody's jumping out at the moment.
I mean, in terms of like TV shows, books, movies, like, I mean, it'd be great if they like the stuff that I like, because then I could talk to them about it. But I wouldn't know.
Or maybe the same genre.
Yeah.
I think with you, Debs, I think it's harder B2B because like you're kind of speaking to like an organizational level, but I think let's take an example of this as like a B2C client of an entrepreneur that has a passion that they like. It could be people that go through this program, for example, that basically like, oh, okay. I think it's really early on, like in that process. That's my gut instinct. But like, do it where it feels easier at the moment, because you can always remap this process based on like organizational level. But it makes more sense to start with an individual, because actually that's how you connect initially. And yeah, we might not know, but actually the more vulnerability is at the heart and we can draw on our own story, and we can kind of get some of these answers as well. Lizzie, what's coming up so far? Because I'm interested in this, because obviously this is where I think that we get to really explore like our segue of like how we come together, but also how we have our uniqueness. And I think this is going to shape the way for the Future Wellbeing Girls too, because we're doing this together for a reason, because actually the fact that we're so opposite, that's not a coincidence, right? Because there'll be wellbeing girls that fit along that spectrum, and me and Lizzie are like the bookends. So they get to really like feel into the energy of like, is it more masculine, action driven? Is it more feminine? Like, what does that look like? So I think we're just trusting how everything's kind of like being laid out here, because I think this is a real challenge for us because there's lots of differences, but I think it'll really allow you to have some freedom over your own voice with this stuff. And your own story. Like, I don't think we've heard that, Lizzie. Like I'm putting you on the spot here, but like, I'm really challenging you to be vulnerable about like your hardest points. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you showing up in this space? Like, there's more to it. You've just not told us.
I know. I was thinking about this, like, actually, like, I haven't really kind of gone into like the deepest, darkest depths of my journey, because I mean, I think I might have mentioned, Carol, have I spoken to you and Helen a little bit about it? I'm not sure.
A little, you've touched on things, yes.
Yeah, so I think for me, because Natalie, I was thinking about this, because obviously we've got to do our videos, haven't we, in about a week's time. So I've been thinking about what I'm going to say, and I've been thinking about my why. And so for me, like, this has been like when I finished university, I remember like speaking to my mum in the kitchen, and I just had like, I don't know, like a fear of going into this working world and trying to fit into a career that I kind of felt like I didn't fit into at all in any way. Like, I don't know, I feel like I could see the world like when I saw the world, I just saw a superficial world, and I was like, how the hell am I going to fit into this?
Wow.
And I already had that when I left. I had that fear already. It's just like, so for me, I think going through and trying lots of different jobs, and always finding the jobs soul destroying, and I was trying lots of different things to see if I could fit and suit. So it's been like a journey of self-discovery for me. And when I ended up in Vietnam, so I've done a lot, traveling's been really important to me as well, because I think leaving your sort of your comfortable zone, your environment, and going abroad and seeing all the differing lenses and cultures and perspectives on different ways that you can live your life, was really rewarding for me, and that like obviously filled my soul with a lot of joy. So going to Vietnam was again part of that journey of self-discovery. So I went and did a TEFL over there, but still actually like it wasn't the right fit, because I was still basically doing something that everyone else does. So a lot of people, when they go abroad and they work, they think, oh well, I'll go and do a TEFL because that's how I can earn money abroad. And I still kind of had that sort of empty feeling. But in that process, when I had my real light bulb moment in Vietnam, because I realized that I was struggled with a lot of self-confidence. I was struggling with like self-love. So this journey of self-discovery, you know, was finding myself and also returning back to a place of loving myself more. And so then I think that really kind of kick-started this journey of me going down this route of thinking, okay, I'm going to like try and really follow my passions. I'm going to do what I enjoy, and I'm going to try and make a job out of that.
And you did.
Yeah.
I just want to mirror Burnley back to you, because I'm just smiling like a Cheshire cat over here. Like, basically, this is everything that the Age of Aquarius is about, right? Everything you've just said is showing everyone a different way. Everything you've just said, I don't fit into this world. I don't belong here. I feel a divide. This corporation, this corporate structure isn't for me. And people are like, where else can I go? They don't know another alternative. You need to tell this story. People are literally waiting for you to tell this story. So
then it will give them what they might class as permission to do it as well.
Yeah, it's really, it's really inspiring.
And I was at a festival on Saturday, and the music the whole time was, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. I'm going to say it one more time. We are the one. You are the one we've been waiting for. Okay. And without that story, it doesn't connect. So please write that story for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you really need to. And like everything, like, and I don't know about you, Carol, but I was just like absolutely like entranced by everything you were talking about then.
Yeah. And it reminded me as well, when I traveled, that was the best year of my life. But I think for me, it's a different reason. I think for me, it's because every day was different. Whereas in this corporate world, it's not.
And your message, you can take exactly what we've done with Lizzie there and really get into your why. So variation and like, I think you've probably got a lot of Gemini in your chart. This is where we need to bring in astrology here too.
I had my call.
Did you? I want to hear about that, because again, I think we need to weave astrology in, right, in our Mars and our Venus, because that's our masculine and feminine, with how we get what we want and how we take action in the world. That's going to be a big part of this. So yeah, Gemini is probably a really big part of that. But there's something around variation, and your marketing will be supporting people to know that they can have it all, or they can, you know, bring different parts of themselves together into one place, or that monotony of like 9 to 5. Maybe you're challenging that status quo a bit, but again, you're just pulling on what was it exactly that was just not sitting right with me, you know. And that's what this is all about. If we can't get clear on that, we don't have an offer. You know. And Debs, it was the magic, and she's brought that magic in, but I really want you to get a bit clear on that, Debs. Like, what, you know, what is that? What you know, where does that come from? And like, how does that come to fruition? Because again, magic is amazing if you felt it, But actually for someone that hasn't or doesn't live in that space, that might be quite hard for them to access. So there's a little bit of messaging that comes before that, I think, around getting them into a space where they can receive that as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop a few more, and these are stuff like that's all in the course, but like I want you to start working through this in the next week, where we're going to come back and actually start to kind of like co-create some of these answers together. But there's lots of different ways you can start to think about, and this is all online, to start to think a little bit about their challenges. I'm going to keep on putting this in the chat, even though you've got it on your course. And what you're starting to think a little bit about, how we're kind of putting the offer together. So the next part in the course is all about, is it a product, is it a service? So Lizzie, we already know yours is a service, but this is where we map kind of what is it, and we actually create the offering. Because Lizzie, yes, you've got a container of the Becoming course, but you can add some bells and whistles on. Like, is it got enough of your stuff in it? Have we really kind of bled Lizzie through it enough? And this is where it's not a coincidence that we're doing this before we do the videos, because I think more and more we are putting you into the Wellbeing Girl, but we're not losing your truth. And I think that's where we're at with you. It's really, really trying to harness kind of you as part of that, and how we can do the two beautifully rather than lose any of it, because it's stuff that just can't be lost.
This ties into what you said right at the beginning as well, with, you know, me as an example, well-being with a nutrition bias. So we can all have our own way of being a well-being girl.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fixed formula.
That's what it was always about. And for me, it's never been about me ever. And it's been about a movement of people being the change in the world that they want to see in the world. Now, how to do that and scale a brand and keep personality is hard. And we're in that with Debs, and Debs is supporting a lot around that at the moment. We're in the thick of it. We're literally learning how to do that live. But that's how we learn, right? So we're going to get it wrong, we're going to get it right. And we're going to then, when there's other wellbeing girls that want to join, we're going to have a really clear roadmap, and we'll be able to support them kind of in the right way, because we'd have lived through this. So I think we're kind of we're where we're meant to be. So yeah, it's a hard challenge. And I think that's why we don't get many people maybe operating in this way. But I do think that it can be done through like a clear message with then a container around some freedom. That's what we started to do, Debs, through our social media, isn't it? But I just think, I just keep coming back to vulnerability. Like, I don't think we're sharing, like, intimacy. I read a quote the other day, into me you see is intimacy. And it made me realize we can't have intimacy and connection if we don't open up and let people be seen, like see us, and tell the story of like that darkest moment that actually I don't even have the words to explain, right? Like, I can't expect someone to see me and hear me if I don't offer them that. There's really something here about vulnerability, and like really supporting us being comfortable in vulnerability, because without that we don't have it. We don't have it. Keep coming back to that. And you know, Deb, same question, like why? Like, where did this come from? When you were up all night channeling this stuff, like what was going on? What were you missing? Like, because you can probably start to get a feel of like that feeling you were missing now, because you have the opposite, you have the magic. So actually when you go back to the day job, you're like, oh yeah, heaviness, because it's like you hadn't felt that before, right? So you have the opposite. We don't know what we don't know.
No, I mean, for me I think it was actually the light bulb moment that I had in the journey within about, and I'll always come back to it, was that visualization where you're on a stage and, you know, people and, you know, and it's the impact you're making. It's the, you know, what you want people to remember you for, or, you know, how, and it really lit me up, and it helped me come up with my impact statement. And it's sort of, that's where it kind of sparked off, because it just really made me think like, what I'm doing is I you know, from a job point of view, it isn't lighting that fire. It isn't, I'm not making the impact that I want to make. I'm not making the difference. It's not fulfilling me, you know, and what does fulfill, and it really had me, you know, made me ask myself those questions, you know, and creative things really fulfill me. They really light me up. And, you know, when I was, and my jobs just weren't, you know, although they have the prospect to allow me to do those things, whether it's working with creative images or videos or, you know, pulling content together, storytelling, you know, I mean, really my job should be all about that. But the 2 jobs that I've had in the last, well, the 3 jobs in fact that I've had in the last year have just not tapped into that feeling. They haven't tapped into those skills that I really enjoy doing. So it was kind of like, what am I doing? Like,
what was your moon? Your moon was in. What was your moon in the end?
oh,
That's just talking to me now, because I'm like, it was all about, for you were like, oh no, and I was like,
yeah, because it was really like, yeah,
all about the magic.
yeah. Oh, I can't remember.
Wasn't it Scorpio or something? And you were like, oh, don't.
It was a I want to say it was like, I don't know if it was Aries or it was, because I had 2 water signs and one.
But one of them you were like, oh, and I was
yeah, and I was like, that ain't me. Yeah, and then I read through it and I was like, oh, actually that's a little bit me. Yeah, so you know, so and like for me it is making that impact. So by helping you with creating your graphics and your social, and you know, that fulfills me. That makes, you know, that the fact that I'm making a difference by supporting you guys. And like it, you know, when I'm thinking about my audience, you know, maybe it is women, maybe it's women with children that are trying to run their own business and have a really busy life and they don't have time to think creatively.
Yeah, and we're getting into the feeling. And actually, like for me, I think with you, it's not, because this is why we came to the coach thing, and we were like, oh, it's not quite a coach at the moment, but it might be in the future. Same with because I feel like you're kind of like showing someone that there's a different way to be through like unlocking magic, but actually it's through, you're just doing it through a different wrapper, if that makes sense. Because actually when someone starts a business, they maybe go into the corporate head of like what it should look like, and they put their personality on one side, they put their mask on, their work mask, and they're like, okay, it needs to be blue or whatever, you know, but actually they lose their whole self.
Yeah.
And there's something with what you're bringing that's about actually keeping that authenticity and that magic in the brand from the start, because how many businesses go corporate right from the start and lose the person? So there's something about keeping the person at the heart of that with you. Without the person, there isn't a business.
100%.
So there's something there around the status quo of like how many business owners, you know, do that, like, you know, work and life, and put their actual, like their beautiful parts of themselves in a box and say they're going to work today. And it's like there's no room for that. So I think it's really interesting what we're getting to here is we're actually kind of really switching the way that we do business from the heart, really. Cool. So we're going to go on to do how to actually attract them in the next session. But in order to do the how we actually attract them, we need to get really close to who they are. Like really close. Like we need to like get up in there, you know, and really, really get to know like their heart's desires, but also like what are the real problems they're facing. And really dive into this story, this personal story of yours, because actually that's going to give you some of the answers. But we need to go deep here, or there's not going to be any heart from it from the start. And I think it would be amazing if you would all have a go at writing your story. And actually, whatever that looks like, either that's just one page or a whole book like me, you know, like I think it's about getting that on paper. And then maybe like really coming back with a few key words or a sentence or something you want to share from the heart, and you get comfortable with saying those words out in the world. Because I'm the same. Like I go to Bali. I was saying to my friend Chloe about this, that I met in Bali. She was here at the weekend. And I said, isn't it weird how the whole time I was in Bali, I didn't mention the Wellbeing Girl to anyone? And why was that? Because I didn't feel like I could show up as my true self in that space. Because in Bali, the Wellbeing Girl was like so 5 years ago, you know, people are like doing like quantum stuff, and they're like, you know, it's like a different, and my ego was challenged, and it was like, no, I'm not over there, like I'm keeping this well. And then after she kind of found out this stuff about me and was like, what, you're doing some amazing stuff in the world. And I was like, oh, I guess I am, like, but there was this like really strong, like, I don't know, resistance to like bringing that person with me, right? And there still is with my personal profile and my business. So it's just really interesting to explore like how much we're actually leaning in at any given time, because that is holding me back, because I need to be showing up and be bold and bright, and some situations I don't bring her with me and bring that vision. So it's just super interesting to just honor where we're at, because it's all part of the process. as well. So yeah, have a go at writing the story. I would, and feel free to kind of share snippets before we meet again, and really have a go at those questions. They're all on the portal, so you can go through kind of the actual kind of like questions themselves. And this is really about the who, and don't forget that it's you. That rhymes as well, which is awesome. So yeah, like there's something there just about the who, and I think we can then go on to the how a little bit more in terms of like some strategies that I know Lizzie's really ready for, in terms of like lead magnet tools and like kind of the DM strategy and what language and what tools we can use to actually, like the sales stuff. We'll start to get into like some really cool sales tactics that actually make things super easy, but I feel like we're not quite there yet to explore them, because we really need to sit with this question. And that's why we meet every few weeks, every month. So I also wanted to ask you guys, like, because we've got this new container now and it's slightly shifted, like, how often do you want to meet? Like, is a month still right for you to go away and explore this in the right way? Or do we want to make it 3 weeks? Like, yeah, guide me and Lizzie on that. And Lizzie, you know, because you need time to go away and play with this stuff and actually be like, do a bit of action and see how it lands, because it's going to take some time.
Yeah. My instinct is every 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So you got to, if it's too short, it's too much. If it's too long, then you lose the tempo.
So we could meet again on like the 12th, because then we've got a bank holiday in there anyway, but we can meet in 3 weeks time on the 12th, if that suits.
Yeah.
And then see where we're at, but maybe every 3 weeks, so the 3rd, the 24th, because we're aiming to be through this by early December, I'm hoping, but I think then we'll see where we're at, because it's the first time we've ran this, obviously, and Lizzie have written this program, so there's no end date, but I also want us to be, but I want to provide some structure, which is why I knew we needed to come back to this with some structure, because you could be on this journey for 3 years as well.
Yes.
And you know, and I think what I'm going to start thinking about, and feel free to share anything that you kind of come up with in this area, but what do you want to have physically by the end of the program? Because I've already said it to Debs in terms of like, I've already challenged her to have 3 new clients. But it's that, right? Like, it's kind of like, Lizzie, what are the numbers? I've given you 4, but it's not your number. Like, you really didn't own that and step into it and like shout it was a 4. You know, and Carol, like, what does that look like? Are you working with 3 people? Like, you know, let's make it really clear what the goal is, because we can get you there. Without the goal, I kind of can't really support you in the way that we'll need to. And my gut instinct is this isn't something I'm going to be rolling out like anytime soon wider than this, because there's other things we're trying to do at the moment. But I get a sense that this is kind of like an ongoing thing. So we might finish in December and just meet monthly, and there might be a rolling topic we bring, and we all co-create and brainstorm and kind of continue in a container of some kind. Because I kind of don't think this is an A to B piece. It's kind of an ongoing piece where everyone brings a problem, and we all work together on that. And it's funny because I'm working with a coach at the moment, and she delivers the container like that. And I was like initially coming to it like, hang on a minute, I need to have a beginning and an end, and I didn't get it. But then now we rock up and bring problems and we have a topic. I see how it works. So I think
there's always something else.
Quite like a rolling program in this format. Is there anything from you guys? Because I'm just aware I filled a full hour very easily, but is there anything you want that we've not covered, that you're kind of, because you will be on your own timeline, so you might be like needing something that we've not given you yet, or anything like that? Or are we happy with where we're at right now?
I'm happy right now, thank you.
Deb's is happy because she only got invited an hour and 15 minutes ago.
No, this has been really great. And actually, like I say, it's spooky how like in tuned you are to what I'm feeling at any given moment, which is just, yeah, really spooky. But you know, this has been really useful. So no, and you've given some really good things to go away and think about, which will be really helpful. So because yeah, I knew I have like a bit of an idea about what my audience is, but I haven't honed in quite as much as I could. So yeah, it's really helpful.
And Debs, you're probably going to be delivering some of this stuff, you do realize, in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Like, this is what, like, you're doing a career in internal communication, so this is your jam, right? Like, you've already got what you need in your toolkit. You're just like learning to use it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I think my biggest struggle right now is imposter syndrome. That's my biggest struggle right now. Like I did all my background stuff of choosing the name and setting up the logo and all that kind of stuff. And then today I did my first post. And honestly, the battle I had to go through to just do it because of imposter syndrome was where I struggled. So that's where I'm at the minute.
I was listening to something about imposter syndrome, and this woman said she pretended that she had a PA.
Nice.
I love that.
Just because then she thought they gave her then the power to say, oh no, sorry, blah blah's not available or can't take that job.
Yeah.
And she said it was just a lot easier pretending to be someone else.
Wow. But that's really powerful though, that isn't it, how much we get in our own way around like some of the magic that we can create. And I think that's it, absolutely. I would, to be honest, really worry if imposter syndrome, like if someone was on this program and they didn't have imposter syndrome, I'd be like, you are not doing the right thing. Like this isn't your jam. Like this isn't your jam, because it's literally like why it's so hard is because it means so much to you, because your whole heart is in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a really great problem to have, because it shows you you're in the right place. And we'll get past that. You know, that's what we're all here together to do. And Lizzie, is this what, you know, I kept saying to Lizzie, like, this is what you need right now as well. Like, is this starting to help with like where we're heading as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think communicating my why and having the messaging and the wording being more me is going to help. And yeah, I think another big one for me is just the kind of messaging with leads, which is a big one. Too.
And we'll go on to kind of like DM strategies and things like that in terms of funnels and techniques and things a bit next time. But I think one thing I'd almost love you guys to come with is like your own vocabulary of like your own like really strong set of words that you just know when you say it. It's like becoming for me. Like as soon as I said that word, the vibration of the word becoming I spoke to me through my body, and I just knew that was the right word, and I knew that word would land with the right people. So you kind of find your words, and whenever you say it, you see something in someone's head, and you're like, you see it shift something in their mind, and you know that's the right vibration, because it's all vibration, it's all energy. So actually what you're putting out there, that person on that level is going to receive, which is why your language is not the same as Deb's language, for example. Really feeling that in our bodies of like, when we say that word out loud, it makes us feel something. Because it speaks to us, and that's how we know. And it's kind of, it's really weird when that happens, because we just know that there's something special about that word we're using. Going quite deep here, you know, just try and stop me. Awesome. I could easily go on, but I think that's enough before we blow our own minds and each other's minds. So yes, I think we're at a really good place. I'm excited to continue the journey with you all. Thank you for saying yes to going on this ride. I didn't know where it was going to go or where we were going to end up, which is part of the fun of it. I almost said to Lizzie, like, I almost forgot I created this before I went. I had like so much stuff with Valiant, and I came back and Becoming was the focus, that I'm like, what is this again? And then I realized like this is such a big part of the jigsaw, because someone will go through Becoming and they'll have all this passion and purpose and be like, what do I do? So it's such a big part of the jigsaw. But I also know like we're not kind of ready for it yet. It's kind of we're like juggling a few things. So I think we'll know when it's kind of there's all the jigsaw, and then it'll all start to come together. But yeah, thank you for being the guinea pigs, because that's where it all starts. So always here for you all. We'll add you to the chat, Debs, and let's keep in touch. We'll let Helen know about the final date. I'll have a catch up with her just to make sure she's happy, although she'll get this recording as well. And yeah, just keep in touch, everyone.
Okay.
Can I add?
Of course, Lizzie.
Because I think it'll be like really beneficial for like Helen and Carol, because I know we talked about it a couple of times. You know, I said that you guys could do some sort of a presentation, but maybe this is more about, you know, if we're going away and like writing our story, you know, talking about our why, maybe on the next session, you and Helen and Debs as well. And I mean, I've started talking a little bit, but I can do it too, is just tell our stories to each other.
Yeah, that would be good practice.
I would love that. So maybe it's a longer session. Maybe we actually commit to kind of a good hour and a half. So everyone has like 10 minutes to really dive in and tell that in a way that's meaningful. And yeah, I think that'd be a really nice way to open the next session and actually get you guys, because if we can't say that out loud in the world, I was realizing the power recently of talking this weekend to my friend Chloe around like songs, in that like I was listening recently to a song on repeat, like literally on repeat for like a week, and then I had this, I always never shy away from anything, but I basically had this connection where I met someone down in Cornwall last week, and it was amazing, and like we now are in talking all the time, and like it's an amazing feeling. And then I listened to this song again yesterday, and I was like, oh my god, I literally just manifested this, because everything in the song was literally what I'm feeling now. And I was like,
what song was it?
oh, like I'll send it to you later, but it's literally just all about like intimacy. It's about like showing up and like being naked, but like from an emotional way, and letting someone like see you. And I literally was singing it, and now like I'm in this position where like I have this connection, and I'm like freaking out, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like amazing the fact that I'm like, I can bring something like that in because of some of these words I said out loud. So never kind of underestimate the power in like we're constantly manifesting our future. And I think, you know, it's just an invitation to get really clear on like those big goals. So Debs, like when you've got those 10 corporate clients around the table, like how does that feel? Like what are you wearing? Like, let's get really clear about like what that feels like, because if we can't imagine that, we cannot create our future. And that's just a bit of a side, but I wanted to say that because I just think I don't think we realize our power sometimes.
Yeah.
So yes, on that note.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So lovely to see you, and I'll speak to you all again soon.
Yeah, take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Stop recording.